And this is Five Stack, where we're counting down the top 5 stories of the moment. Our very favorite Olga Lautman is here, along with Dean Blundell. Hi, Olga. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm good. You're doing some home stuff, which I know is taking your time. So I'm glad you can have some time for us with Five Stack today. And Dean, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm absolutely interested in Olga's painting adventure. We were just talking about it. She only has 20 minutes because what people don't know is poor Olga dumped an entire can of like furniture paint on the floor and she's got to get to it. And if she doesn't get to it, it's going to wreck the floor. And then she's got brand new floors and she's expecting a bed delivery tomorrow.
And she still loves you so much that she's willing to do this.
Instead of I hate calling saying, "Oh, this paint is bad," I took the paintbrush and started painting right off of the dump paint.
Oh, that's a solution.
Let's paint to clean up.
Well, we'll see if we can get this done before the paint dries, literally. And then that's the way I'm doing this quickly on
So
Friday.
good. You're a pro, dude.
Man, I've done this before.
Yeah.
Let's talk the travel advisories first, because we spoke about this a little bit yesterday, but it's becoming clear the United States is defining its new allies and its new enemies very quickly. And Canada, Germany, Great Britain seem to be on the outside, and presumably Russia's on the inside. I don't even know who the rest are, but those I've never imagined in a million years. And Olga, you and I spoke about this many times about what it would look like once the Trump administration took place. I did never imagine something so quick. It has been happening at a pace which is unbelievable, really, when you think about it. I'd love to hear your take, but we've got new travel advisories now from Canada, Britain, and Germany advising their citizens to be cautious about coming to the United States because they might get detained for long periods of time. And indeed, that seems to be happening to citizens of just those countries. What's your take on how quickly this is happening and these new advisories?
I expected it to be quick because it's like how to crash a democracy in 30 days for dummies. Trump should actually write that book. But I expected it to be quick. They've been preparing for 4 years. They learned from their mistakes. The first time, obviously, Trump wasn't able to do everything because there were actual guardrails. There were the adults in the whatnot. But Trump learned everything from the first time around. He saw what his obstacles were, who his obstacles were. And this time they were planning to come back and go full speed. And the deportation of the quote unquote gang members, as we're getting their identities, Trump and his government lied completely because these are innocent people. I already saw 3 cases where these people were here with an asylum date. This is what people need to understand. It is every person's right to seek an asylum in a country, and a country must honor the asylum process, whether it is Belarus, whether it is United States, whether it is Germany. You have the right, if you are facing persecution, to walk up to a border and ask for asylum. And then you go through the process of going to the court, and the court judge will decide whether your case qualifies. And 3 of the people so far that their family members identified, because they still refuse to deal with the court and give them names and give them information on who they disappeared. 3 of the family members recognized their family members in the videos. These people had asylum dates. They're here legally waiting for asylum. One is in July, another one I believe was in June, and then I'm not sure when the third, but they have asylum dates to hear for the judge to decide whether their situation warrants them asylum and to stay in the country. So we are now Russia. Trump is kidnapping anyone brown. Americans are getting swept up. Citizens are getting swept up. And before I get to the travel advisories, there was another case. An American citizen got in Chicago, got kidnapped by ICE. He tried to show that he's an American citizen. They held him 10 hours. When they finally got around to understanding he is an American citizen, they released him with no paperwork, no documentation. This is what happens in Russia. This is what happens. You get picked up off the street, you get disappeared. People don't know where you are. The family runs around precinct to precinct, colony to colony, looking to find their family members. And this is what is happening in the United States. And now Trump is doing it to Germans. 3 German citizens kidnapped, held, no due process. A Canadian woman held, no due process. She just gave an excellent interview, which I suggest everyone to read, of being kidnapped, held for 10 days, being shackled, being no blanket, nothing. Why are we treating our allies or anyone for that matter like this? And that's it. I don't blame UK. I don't blame Canada. I don't blame Germany for issuing travel advisory to the United States. You can see all of Europe follow suit with this because it is not safe to travel here. You will get swept up. Whether you have work visa, the Canadian woman had a work visa. I mean,
Chilling.
Yeah,
Chilling
was
stuff when we hear you say that. Go ahead.
and was there for years. The Canadian woman, Jasmine Moon, who we talked about in the 5-stack yesterday. We covered a little bit of this, but adding to that list to Olga's outstanding summary, by the way, great job.
Thank you.
Germany has issued a travel advisory. Who would have thought Germany would tell the whole world that, hey, it's too dangerous to go to the United States? The United Kingdom, that was 2 days ago today, Finland and Denmark both said, hey, we're advising our citizens to stay away from the United States. And they added an extra trigger for the Danish people. And they basically said, if you're Danish and you're in that country and you're working, you should consider leaving ASAP. Canada is readying their travel advisory. These are devastating. These are absolutely devastating because people pay attention to travel advisories. And there was a story that came out this morning about Maine, which is just south of Quebec, and how their tourism industry in this small town in Maine is down 90% in the case of one hotelier who said he's going to have to close shop. He's been there for 35 years. The family's owned it for 50 years. The fallout continues, but to your point, and I think what Olga was trying to say, which she said so eloquently, and I'm a big fan of just laying it on Front Street, it appears that Donald Trump is legitimately targeting citizens from specific countries. He's legitimately targeting, as Olga said, people who visually look like immigrants, but he's also visually targeting Canadians. He's targeting people from Europe, specifically EU countries that are now putting out travel advisories who all happen to be in that ring of threat of Donald Trump. I don't think he said a lot about Finland, but he's definitely taken a strip off England. He's definitely told Denmark he's coming for Greenland and there's not a goddamn thing they can do about it. And he went off on Canada again today saying we need to be the 51st state. And he said we need to be the 51st state because they've been floating us financially for years. Canada, and so it's just a fire hose of lies again. And I just want to point out Canada, which is where I live, is the second biggest debtor to the United States. We own the second most United States T-bills. They owe us $378 billion. So we're just going to call the loan in pretty soon. But we're also now telling people, don't travel to the United States. And Canada's going to do the same thing tomorrow, Olga, to your point. They're going to say, hey, listen, Canada, if you're for Canadian, you're working in the United States, be very careful. Canadian employers that have Canadians in the United States are now looking to get extra insurance. There's kidnapping insurance you can get. There's hostage insurance you can get. And this is going on right now. And the point of the whole matter is that Donald Trump doesn't care who you are. If you're from a country that doesn't like him, he's going to put some of your people in jail if you're in the United States. That's what it feels like.
And to add, so go ahead, Olga. Yeah, go first.
And just to add 2 more things. One, another chilling thing for anyone as to our legacy media debates, are we in a constitutional crisis or not and whatnot? We are in a dictatorship. And another pointer that happened the other day that proves that we are in a dictatorship is a French scientist was traveling to Houston for a conference. The ICE authorities at the airport checked his phone, and for everyone, you turn off your biometrics. Do not, in the case you get held up, they'll make it easier that they could point the phone in your face. And
That's actually a really good tip.
And they checked his phone, saw that he was critical, not of Trump himself. He was critical of Trump's scientific policies because Trump is gutting science and gutting every single program there is. And they banned him entry and sent him back. The French are in an uproar. I have not seen something like this type of divide between the French and Americans in a very long time. They are pissed. And the second point I want to make, all of this is being tested right now on Canadians, French, Venezuelans, This is meant for us. This is meant for us. They're testing it right now on the group. And then when they perfect and see how far they can get away, it will turn absolutely on American citizens, on American protesters, and you will see the same tactics. Today it's Canadian or Venezuelan. Tomorrow it's going to be me or you or anyone else in America. So this is why we need to scream about this, push back, and do everything to make sure that he doesn't succeed in disappearing people in America.
What you're describing is not only like a complete abandonment of due process and the rules of the road. This is the way people have always operated in the last 70 years around the world. But you're saying that America's now, which used to be the standard holder, ignoring due process for immigrants and for travelers. On top of that, you've got what you're saying is a constitutional crisis. It absolutely is a constitutional crisis. We don't really understand why the administration didn't follow the judge's rulings. We had planes on the ground and planes still in the air at the time of this judgment that came down. There was order to return these immigrants, these undocumented immigrants back home, some of them citizens. And on top of that, we're now in what you're describing is really a coup almost. We're no longer in a situation where this is just a rules-based, we're going to try and maneuver the GOP into a way of controlling all of the United States in a more authoritarian way. This is almost a complete dismantling of the way America exists.
Yeah.
The Constitution is no longer the Constitution. The authoritarianism is unbelievable. Firstly, that locking people up for 12 days in a cell without, this is not America. It's not America. And to your point, it sounds a lot like Russia. But also, these are also Russia's enemies. These are Putin's enemies.
Yeah.
He hates NATO so much, and these are NATO countries that they're targeting. We're seeing the United States doing Putin's bidding in holding back these travelers. It's really, I spoke about the pace, but it's quite horrifying and really sad.
Putin's tactics. There's another case right now in New Hampshire. They kidnapped, I believe he's also German. They kidnapped him. Again, he lives here. He had some kind of a visa. Held already over 2 weeks, stripped him, kept putting him in a cold shower and out. So now we're using torture tactics on our European allies to the point that besides having the flu, he passed out, had to be taken to the hospital. He's still being held. Nobody knows for what. And then someone just mentioned the disappearing during George Floyd. Absolutely. They were disappearing people at the time. I was posting this and screaming, this is what happens in Russia. Unmarked vans were coming and picking up people and grabbing them off the street and disappearing them for hours. No one could find them. No one knew what was happening. This is not what America is. America is supposed to be a rule of law. There's a damn reason that people here, every single agency has an insignia so they could be held accountable if they break the law. There's a reason we don't have unmarked cars without people announcing who they are, grabbing people off the street. This is what happens in Russia. And yes, Trump is employing Putin's tactics. And this is why we need to, I'm not kidding, because I don't think anyone is prepared to live in a Russian style system here.
Yeah.
And we need to push back, scream, do everything to make sure that we don't get to that point.
And Olga, it's a great point. And we talked about it again yesterday, the Insurrection Act, which is, we 27, 28 days away maybe from him triggering the Insurrection Act. All signs point to that he will. That'll make this easier. And not only make this easier, but then in that same purview of disappearing people, you can also start shutting things down, claiming it's a national security threat, whether it be a media outlet, whether it be a human being, whether it be a Canadian, German, Swiss business, whether it be a Ukrainian university, right? Like that's really the crazy part is, as Olga said, this is a beta test for what's to come to Americans, for Americans, because this Insurrection Act basically is the one trigger, is, as far as I understand it, the Illegal Aliens Act that gave him access to anybody who's in the country that might not be American, might be brown, might be black, might be just a pain in his ass if they're not from here. And you know how much people of color and immigrants and migrants hate this man's guts. So you got that. And then let's transverse that over to the Insurrection Act. Anybody like that French scientist, if you're American, they're going to start going through your phones. They're going to start spot arresting you. They're going to start coming to your house. They're going to start meta crawling data from your social media accounts, and you're going to have a social credit.
They're doing it now.
Oh, I
They're
know.
doing it
now.
Yeah.
I know they are. I know they are. That's how they got the French scientists, right?
It's American citizens right now. They've got to look at them. that are right now crawling social media accounts and profiling every American as to what they've been saying online, what they've been saying on social, what they've been sharing, or their private communications. It's already happening right now. And it's
There's a
terrifying.
company, Shadow Dragon, I believe it is. Everyone needs to read the 404 Media, the media outlet, an article that came out last week. The company is working with the government and crawling right now. Again, they're looking for protesters, for pro-Palestinian protesters. Tomorrow it's going to be protesters of any kind.
How is this?
And they're
How is this any
crawling-
different? How is this any different than what China does?
It's not.
How is it any different
I-
than what Russia does?
It's not.
I- absolutely not.
Exactly the same as far as I'm concerned. I think that's what I'm trying to say is I think the authoritarianism has happened so quickly, we might not even be realizing how quickly it is happening. We all expected it, but to be happening at this pace is phenomenal and terrifying. This is the most advanced military nation in the world, and to think that it is happening so quickly, and with protests just beginning to happen, we're starting to see some of that movement happening on the ground. And certainly at these meetings with Republicans and Democrat representatives, there's been a sense of disbelief by their voters, but the pace is not quick enough, really, in some ways. But if the Insurrection Act is going to be available for him as a tool starting in a month from now, really, on April 20th is what people are saying. If he can do it, then he's just thinking about the southern border. But once he's got authority to do it, he can institute it anywhere. We've got massive nationwide protests starting on April the 5th. It's not hard to see how those two things can collide and really be challenging. There's a very limited window now for Republicans, if they are any who have a spine, to start standing up and for some action to be taken. Did you see the AOC Saunders rally? There's a lot of people there in Vegas. Another one's happening tonight, I believe. I think it was in Vegas. Do you talk about that a little bit about rising up? Because even though it's not our fourth story, let's say it's our fourth story. Talk about what you're thinking about that. It's obviously late in the game, but people need to really start thinking about how critical these protests are that are coming up on April the 5th.
I personally think it's never late. If Ukraine could do it, and there were literally had the two revolutions they carried out. They have Russia next door with Russian agents who were killing Ukrainians during Maidan and Yanukovych's people during the first Orange Revolution. I never think it's late, and if they could do it, anyone can do it. Because at the end of the day, there's more of us than them. So they will use fear tactics, but at a point in Ukraine, when they started beating and disappearing protesters from Maidan, that only enraged people and more came out. And then when they killed the Heavenly 100, it was 100, I believe, 18 protesters, sniped them. That enraged people, and that led to Yanukovych's collapse and him fleeing the country to Russia. So I don't think it's late, but I do think people do need to act. The pressure points are the town halls, because you know what? These Republicans are so scared of being primaried by Musk. Guess what? They're going to have a choice. They're going to have their own people getting rid of them and not rehiring them. So I think they are the weak link, especially a lot of districts are in red districts. And even if it's a red district, at the end of the day, Americans, if their Social Security get cut, if Medicare, Medicaid, and basic services get cut, you blame the person in front of you. Your ideology goes right out the window because you need to pay your rent next month. So I do think that it's going to keep growing. I think the movements are going to keep growing. I think that the town halls are critical. And both for Dems also. Dems leadership needs to wake up. We're not in some politically correct environment that we were the past several decades. This is a different world. They need to wake up. So I think we will be fine if we push back and enough people wake up.
And I think like we talked again, you're starting to see that happen. And I know that maybe it's not a great example, but there have been a lot of Tesla barbecues lately. You're seeing people that are that angry. You're seeing people that are willing to put themselves in harm's way. But you're seeing people who are so visibly pissed off at the loss of rights, freedoms, the idea they might lose Medicaid, the idea that their parents, grandparents might lose Social Security. But they're really pissed off at the way Trump and Musk and Lutnick are doing it. And case in point, today, Lutnick said something that I thought was absolutely incredulous. I don't know if you saw it. He was being interviewed and they're going, hey, listen, what happens if because there's this fight now. The judge basically said you can't touch Social Security. Trump came out and said, oh, yeah, maybe we're just going to get rid of it altogether and shut everything down. And they're like, yeah, you can't do that because then people will miss their Social Security checks. They'll go hungry. Old people won't be allowed to pay rent, all this other thing. You're going to put people in real harm's way. Jeopardy, you're going to kill people. And Lutnick was like, yeah, if my mom misses one Social Security check, no big deal. Howard Lutnick is a billionaire.
Billionaire, yeah.
Like the false equivalence, the meanness, the anger is really starting to set in with people. And materially, like Olga says, when someone can't afford eggs, which basically no one in the United States can afford right now, when someone can't afford food, when someone can't feed their children, and you do that to 300 million people, or case in point, he's doing it to every single American who isn't worth over $1 billion. So let's say 98% of the population, 99% of the population. To that point, the second America decides that they've had enough, right? You're going to see violence, and you're seeing it around the world now. You're seeing it in Romania. You saw it in Moldova. You're seeing it in Belgrade. I don't know if you saw some of the uprising in Belgrade for people who have lost a whole bunch of freedoms under Vucic, who's the Putin-aligned dictator there. And America's going to take a page out of that book. I really do believe that. And I don't think I'm with Olga. I don't think it's ever too late to rise up and show your displeasure with your government, specifically that government, which is legitimately a full-on dictatorship at this point. And the wheels are almost completely off whatever anacracy that they thought they had. It's not a democracy, it's an anocracy. It's a hybrid between when you're bearing out a new dictatorship, the authoritarian gives you this sort of feeling that you might still be a democratic country hanging on to words like freedom, but it's really a dictatorship in waiting. So I think people are starting to get it. And again, the Tesla barbecues have been a lot of fun to watch. So
Yeah, I don't condone violence. Even with protests, I think everybody needs to keep it peaceful.
100%,
nothing that-
100%. Agree with
There's
that
nothing that
completely.
scares dictators more than standing with your phone with a flashlight shining.
Absolutely. And the reason that any violence and anything, like even the vandalism, I think is a real dangerous thing, because at the end of the day, these guys are looking for a reason to invoke this Insurrection Act, and they're looking for a reason to stop these protests, and they're looking for a reason to arrest as many people as they can.
Yeah.
They'll be doing that at every protest, at every action. People have to
And
follow
they'll
the
be
law and be
sending their
very
own.
peaceful. Yeah, and they will be sending their own. We know that. We saw those kinds of tactics in Jan 6, where they used the reverse of that tactics. But we know that they're going to be sending their own people. We know that there are Russian agents inside the Jan 6 insurrection. So we know all that's going to happen. So I think people have to really be careful out there when they are protesting, and go in groups, and also start the best protests are grassroots protests. They begin on the ground, and they begin in small communities, and then they grow, and because they're much stronger, and just people who know their own communities are much better at managing the reaction in those communities than if they go to other people's communities. But people do need to start thinking about the strategies and their values as they go into these protests, that it could be tricky. It could turn in any moment, it could turn violent, and people need to be very careful of making sure that things are de-escalated all the time, that people are organized
And documented.
Documented. Keep your phones rolling, keep your friends nearby. It's one of those things that it has to be organic, and it has to come from the grassroots up for it to really be effective. But it is, as you guys point out, it's never too late, and probably needs to happen right now.
I just want to add, I don't, a country with a few 100 million guns, I hope it's peaceful. Again, I dislike Elon Musk as much as the next person, to the point where I got rid of my Tesla and got a Kia. So like, I mean it when I say I have no problem watching the dissension and the death of his brand and who he is and his stag, which is funding everything. I don't know how America comes through this without seeing some pretty erratic violence. And I hope that's not the case. I really do.
You know what? And it's a very good point. I'm in New York, so obviously that's not the case, but pretty much like people have to remember, as many Republicans that have guns, so do Democrats. Pretty much every Democrat outside of the tri-state area is a gun owner. So I don't see it going to that, because I can tell you, like, for instance, you have a lot of people who voted for Trump. The ones who are willing to break the law for him are a minor fraction compared to the majority. My whole block voted for Trump. Are they going to go to a Capitol and start breaking shit? Absolutely not. They wouldn't lift their finger for him except to maybe wear a t-shirt or some kind of put a flag in front. So the majority of people, they don't want that. And that would, I don't think it'll go that way. I'm sure there will be, just like during George Floyd, pockets of violence. There will be agitators that the regime sends to set off false flag operations in order to attempt to institute measures, because like in Russia, it's been done so many times. But I remember there were the big protests growing, and Putin sets off the St. Petersburg subway station explosion, and suddenly, oh, we had a terrorist attack, and they like put very strict measures that people can't gather and this and that. But again, I say I've seen these protests across all of Eastern Europe. Nothing, dictators want violence, and nothing gets them more angry than people just standing and linking hands, arms. That will get them more angry than if they're actually burning down something or breaking down something.
Yeah. And that's a great point, and I think underscores the real importance of being peaceful, to not give anybody any excuses.
Shining a light, singing. And Belarus, God bless them, they're too nice. Ukrainians we're mixed. So we start out nice, and then you start killing us, we'll start burning shit down. But poor Belarusians, I remember they were handing like flowers to the police, and the police is throwing grenades at them. I'm like, are you kidding? You could start off nice, but then obviously in Ukraine, when authorities went wild, they started burning tires and doing everything to push back authorities from kidnapping and attacking the protesters and to protect the protesters.
And the phone. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
I think the phone. Okay. I think the phone is very important documents. I think people should videotape as much. They should try going live as much as possible. They should share their experience. I think that's more frightening than anything to Donald Trump. If there are streams and streams of people feeding live video out there, I think it'll be devastating to them. And I think that's one of the reasons that people should embrace the phone more than anything else in terms of a tool. The number 3 story, we had a visit today to the Pentagon by Elon Musk. Supposedly was going to be briefed about the war with China, a coming war with China that Trump seems to be planning. Trump says he's seen these plans. There are 20 to 30 pages of plans of a war with China. Really? That's all news to everybody, and certainly shouldn't be something that Elon Musk would even come close to. But he even admitted today that maybe there might be conflicts of interest from Elon Musk because of his influence of the Chinese companies in terms of seeing those. But let's talk specifically about the press conference. Was bizarre today. Do you guys see it with Hegseth? It was really strange. It was, firstly, Hegseth is not ready for this role at all.
He was so uncomfortable. He was fucking awesome to watch. His hands were moving. He was sweating. He was screwing up his words, and he's a professional commentator. That was that part of the whole press conference was insane.
And sorry, go ahead.
And it was incredible watching him try and light it up. And it was absolutely even funnier watching Trump sit there like this, completely ignore the guy over it.
This thing, he now sits at his desk and he's like folded arms and then his servants, his ministers, they come around and they stand around him and they give him briefings. They're saying how great he is, how wonderful he is.
I know how much people hate it. Hang on, I know how much people hate that.
Yeah.
But let me just inject some humor into this.
Yeah.
That is exactly what he was promised when Elon Musk said, I'm going to give you $300 million and you're going to win, and I'll do a bunch of stuff with all my satellites. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
All you have to do is sit in that fucking chair behind the Resolute desk. We'll parade people in. You can sit there in that warm diaper and you can put out whatever edicts you want. And then you can go back to, on the weekends, you can go golfing. You can have a great time. This is one of the greatest displays of a non-president presidency you will ever see in your life. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he can't travel, right? Because he's a 34-time convicted felon. So it's been awesome to watch. But to your point, yes, the press conference was crazy. Even crazier when he announced that he was going to build a new jet with all that taxpayer money.
Right.
He was going to name it after himself, and he was going to call it the F-47.
Right? And then on top of that, Hegseth is busy saying this is going to be having to protect the future of America for your grandchildren and my grandchildren, everyone's grandchildren.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I don't know if you caught this, that they even said they were going to do a stripped down F-47 for
Yeah.
their allies. And
Yeah.
some of them who may not be their allies anymore. It seems to me that he's projecting, maybe that's a moment where he's really speaking the truth. He seems to be realigning America with
Yeah.
that in mind. We all can see it, but clearly happening with Canada, the United States, and Canada,
NATO.
Germany, and France. But this is what's happening. America's becoming Russia's ally, and I think that F-47 announcement today is an indicator that this is exactly where they're heading. They're no longer on the, if they were allies before in the World War II term, and there's the axis of whatever, this is the axis, right? This axis nations now include the United States.
Well, sorry, Olga, you go right ahead, because I have a couple tidbits of information about that announcement that have a lot to do with Canada and the EU and this new arms block agreement, but go ahead.
I
Please.
was just going to say that I feel like the U.S. now became, what is it now, the 47th, I think, or 48th oblast of Russia.
Oh.
He keep talking about Canada being the 51st state. I think we're like the 40, I forgot how many now, 46 regions?
I don't know what
47?
they have, but yeah.
So I think we're like the 47th or 48th region of Russia.
Wow.
Oblast. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. No, I don't disagree with you. It is absolutely a proxy Russian government in office. But the arms announcement was interesting, because when he announced that he was going to put out this F-47, he also said it was unseeable, which was hilarious.
Invisible fighter jets. Nobody.
We contracted Wonder Woman to make this new jet. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
He's going to come out with a lasso of justice too for all of his friends. But it was
a little cloak.
Oh, it's so stupid. But what he said was he's going to put this new jet out. Things are going to be great. It's going to protect children around the world, which is just fucking crazy. And then he said something very interesting. And there was a reason he said it. He said, and I quote, "We're not going to sell these jets to other countries. We're going to sell stripped down versions of these jets to other countries, just in case they're not our friends anymore."
Yes, that's what I meant.
So
yeah.
telegraphing that he's going to sell worse versions of this. He's not going to give them all the nice stuff, which is interesting. And I'll tell you why he said it. A couple of days ago, Canada reached an agreement to help manufacture and build 6th-generation fighter jets with France, Sweden, Finland, England, and Denmark. Now, here's where that's interesting, because what we're going to do here in Canada, he doesn't need our oil. He doesn't need our rare earth materials. He doesn't want anything from us. So what we're going to do is take all of that, and we're going to pivot, and we're going to start building jets and selling all that raw material and whatever is needed so that we can defend ourselves with our allies in Europe. And that $800 billion deal, at least 100 or 200 billion is coming into Canada with these block construction jobs where they're going to take over manufacturing of different pieces of equipment, jets, artillery, mortars, munitions. And so we've combined the security deal, and Trump knows this. We've combined the security deal for economic reasons. We've combined it for strategic defense reasons, and we're not going to be doing any of the F-45s. We had 88 on order. We're going to cancel all of those. Everybody here is freaking out about it, but he can brick these machines from anywhere in the world that he wants so that it's completely useless for us to use. All of those jets were built with that in mind. Lockheed Martin lied and put out a tweet saying, "Oh, we don't have a kill switch on those." Yeah, they do. And then on top of that, this is why it's fascinating. Trump knows this. If you don't think he doesn't have a direct line to the CEO of Lockheed Martin going, "Listen, our stock price is in the toilet. People are handing back their contracts for these F-35s. We've lost thousands of them at $14 or $15 billion a pop. We are fucked. You need to do something." So he says, "We're going to build the F-47. We're going to stick a bunch of money in your pockets. And we're not going to sell any of these jets to anybody. We're going to sell the stripped down version." He's not doing a stripped down version. No one's buying any of these things from him. They're completely isolated. No, of course he's not going to build it. That was pure theater, because we and the rest of the free world that know he's a piece of shit have taken all of our defense spending and we're sharing it with each other, and we're going to build our infrastructure around it. And we're going to take all the raw materials, all those defense contracts, and we're going to prop this country up. Ukraine's going to do it. We're in the same agreement with Ukraine, drone facilities with Ukraine. So this is really one of those beautiful butterfly effect things. And that's what you saw today, was the panic of the defense industry sitting behind that desk in a warm diaper with Pete Hegseth doing jazz hands the entire time, going, "Yeah, we're going to be fine." They're not going to be fine. They are going to lose their shirts, and they know it. And so this is all fucking performative theater. That was my take to it.
And it's also, sorry, go ahead. Good.
Now, and to add, the world got a good awakening after Ukraine. Ukraine is what set this off. When Trump not only betrayed Ukraine with screaming about Zelensky being a dictator and all the other garbage that he was screaming, but when he actually bricked weapons in Ukraine, cut off the intel sharing, told whatever it is, Maxar satellite company to stop sharing satellite images, and told all our allies not to share any intelligence that's coming from US to Ukraine. Europe woke up. And as a result, I really have seen them scramble the past few weeks. I can't believe it. It feels like it happened a year ago, but it's only been a few weeks. And they right now are on this path that one, they're propping up. Even Germany, I was in shock. Germany hasn't moved. They usually move at the rate of a slug. They even moved quick and then propped up their defense spending. And now they're putting all their money collectively into investing in European made weapons and making sure and put out a statement basically that we cannot have people buying American weapons. So people, this all happened. Had Trump shut his mouth and never betrayed Ukraine, never cut off the weapons that they had, none of this would have happened. But because he did, now you're going to have the whole American defense complex basically collapse.
So the Germans are also pulling back on their F-35 orders. It looks like they will be
Everything.
many times because they're concerned as well that there's a kill switch and some other issues. And just to point out, it was actually Boeing that was awarded the F-47 deal today, or the
Okay.
the operation. But I think your point is generally interesting about the whole defense sector is taking it on the chin because America has no longer got the same allies, and all these allies that they did have are uniting against them. And so this is exactly what's happening.
He's abandoning them.
And let me just give Emmanuel Macron some props. I don't know if you saw him yesterday stand at the pulpit and go, okay, as I understand it, there are some countries that are in need of some jets and some munitions. We're open for
Yeah.
business. Just give me a call. I started.
Yeah.
No, and this is what he's doing to America. He is destroying America. Trump is destroying America. He is like a kamikaze fighter, since we're talking about that's doing everything to implode America and take himself with it. Because trust me, he, if there's any way to destroy America, every step that he is doing is put in the path. And he's doing it very quick, and it's happening across all sectors, domestically, with foreign policy. And that's it. There's no way. I deal with Europe on a daily basis, with Ukraine. There is no one who trusts coming here right now. Like, they're worried to even fly into the US. They don't trust America. They don't trust sharing intelligence with America because it might go to Russia. And this is like across every country. And every time he opens his mouth, he has to praise Putin. And then when we get to the other story, the children, I'll even go off more.
Let's do it right now. Let's talk about it. So let's talk right now about the number 2 story, which is all about the children that have been kidnapped out of Ukraine by Putin and his army. This is becoming the key issue in any negotiation. Talk to us a little bit more about what that means and how important it is.
Oh, before I even start, everyone here and whoever is tuning in from America, please, I beg of you to call your Congress people and say, what the fuck? Please. I've called every single one that I could think of, and I will keep calling until I get an answer. So basically, last Friday, Musk and the State Department cut a contract to Yale. They have a humanitarian lab that since 2022 has been tracking the Ukrainian children stolen into Russia. Now, Ukraine has identified around 20-something thousand children. The Russians have said they've stolen and bragged about it 700,000 children. This Yale lab was crucial in collecting evidence and working closely with government officials and Department of Justice and State Department to try to locate these children. They did bring back and found 1,243 children that were brought back to Ukraine. Now, it's worse than just kidnapping. Russia kidnaps these kids, brings them into Russia, washes them to erase their Ukrainian heritage, to erase their language, their culture, to basically make them forget about their family back in Ukraine, their homeland, everything. And then they hand these kids, put them through an adoption system to hand it to Russians who are adopting. So now you have Ukrainian kids who are going to grow up and believe that they're Russians and won't know who they are. This is genocide. I've worked on this for the past several years. I've worked with European officials, with Ukraine on this issue. So now the State Department not only cut the contract, but I believe it was on Monday, there was a bipartisan letter sent to the State Department saying that they believe that this database that was about to be transferred to Europol and to Ukrainian law enforcement was destroyed. If this is true, America is complicit now under Trump in covering up for genocide, because genocide meets the definition. If you steal a group of people from a territory and ship them to the country, the aggressor country, this is qualifies as genocide. This is why Putin and Belova have arrest warrants out for the kidnapping of children, which is very rare because the ICC normally doesn't immediately put out arrest warrants unless there's very clear-cut evidence, and there's plenty to the fact that Russian officials are bragging about it. Anyway, so this is what is happening with
To underline this,
Ukraine.
just the database that's being kept by Yale University that was of all these children, or at least a large number of
That they've
children
identified.
that have been kidnapped by the Russians or brainwashed in these camps or whatever, I don't know what you would say, but
Re-education.
re-educated, I guess is what it's crazy.
Kidnapped, dude. They've been kidnapped and trafficked. That's what
Yes.
they've done. Yes.
But this re-education, this brainwashing situation is just also so bizarre.
They're
and so-
embracing their heritage.
yeah,
I mean,
just
it's like for taking a kid, bringing them and then growing them up. They get tortured every time they speak Ukrainian, every time they sing the Ukrainian national anthem or repeat it. They get tortured and beaten until this gets erased and they stop. And then they get reprogrammed with the Russian national anthem, the Russian language, and then they get put into an adoption system. One woman last week or 2 weeks ago was bragging that she lost her son, a war criminal who's inside of Ukraine. And she's bragging, oh, I just got a new baby, one that is stolen from Ukraine. And she filmed herself with this stolen child. So
It's
yes,
just
go
horrific
ahead.
to think that America could be part
Sorry,
of
I'm
this.
very passionate about
No, this is the
No,
right,
thank
this
you.
is the right
Yeah.
thing to be
Yes, sir.
passionate about. It's just so unbelievable that that is happening in modern age. But the fact that America is now complicit in the destruction of this database, we don't know where this database is. So the only trusted record of who these kids are and where they're from and where they went is disappeared. We don't
Yeah.
have that anymore.
Yeah, you know what? And that to me is Donald Trump and this administration are accomplices to war crimes. And the fucking crazy part to me is for a long time, there was this narrative, I think it was a QAnon narrative, mostly that Donald Trump and the Trump administration and the Republican Party were going to root out child traffickers. The Epstein thing was a big part of that. He's done so much for
Right.
child trafficking, human trafficking. Donald Trump and this administration, to appease Vladimir Putin, are helping him cover up the trafficking and the kidnapping of over 20,000 Ukrainian children. Like 20,000 of them, not a few, 20,000 that we know of, right? It's amazing because we knew about the human trafficking. I knew Russia was doing this. They were widely reported, but it got tamped down, obviously, for a long period of time because everybody's focusing on the geopolitical part. But Zelensky has made that part of any peace agreement is you're bringing those children back here, right? They're coming here. We're not signing any ceasefire agreement. We're not doing anything unless you returning 20,000 children and thousands of women, by the way, thousands of women that they've just taken into Russia to do whatever they want with. If
That's
you don't return,
Mariupol alone, 100,000 people disappeared
gone.
who were not killed. They're either dead or in Russia.
Yeah,
100,000.
being re-educated or being used as human capital in some capacity. And we know that Russia's greatest capacity for death comes through using their own people for human capital for things that they want done. So it's truly amazing. And I don't doubt, and I had a conversation with someone the other day Actually, my friend Alex Rebekov, who is in Ukraine, living in Bucha, he was our correspondent for a long period of time, very soft-spoken guy. I have no doubt that they are readying some type of war crime charge against Donald Trump for not only abandoning Ukraine's aid, not only abandoning their ability to communicate with Starlink satellites, not only abandoning any intelligence, but this 20,000 kidnapped and trafficked children piece that he helps and is helping by removing any access to that database and then shutting down the team that worked on it. That's the other part of this. He shut the entire thing down, that whole department, on top of shutting down every investigation into Russia at the same time. And we're not talking about this enough. We know he's a Russian asset, but we're not talking about the live aspects of this that are so detrimental, that are so disgusting, that Donald Trump should seriously be charged with war crimes at this point.
No, and I also said I'm not going
must.
to end. I'm not going to stop, and this is before Trump, until there is a tribunal held for what Russia has done. Because the human toll, the amount of war crimes, the beheadings, the freaking holding concerts with Ukrainian headgun pipes. I could go on and on. This, like I said, issue is very personal to me, and this is something that there needs to be like a Nuremberg trial for this. If they destroy the database, I expect that Marco Rubio and Donald Trump and everyone down the chain of command who gave that order to destroy needs to be part of these files. And I will not stop until Russian officials and anyone who their collaborators in Belarus, North Korea, and US are held accountable. These are kids. To destroy evidence to protect Putin, you're going to destroy evidence of kids potentially. I'm waiting for Congress. We have the Republican, but his name is Bacon. He is very passionate about this. He was part of the 15 signatures. Fitzpatrick is another Republican who signed on to the letter. He's part of the Ukrainian caucus. I'm waiting for them to get answers. The State Department came out, said they did not destroy it. And these Congress people are waiting for a copy to see if there's any.
Can't do that about figuring out if they destroyed it or not. There must be people who are aware whether it exists or doesn't exist. People who were working on it, we need to find out right away. And if the FBI hasn't launched an investigation on this, then they should be launching an investigation on this.
No, they're too busy with bullshit.
I know that they're not trustworthy leadership there anymore, but there certainly must be people inside the FBI who are still operating as independent-minded justice officials, and there must be at least an attempt to try and find out what's going on. If not that, on a state level, you'd think that there's some sort of way of finding out on a criminal level if this stuff has happened or not.
Just want to remind everybody, Kash Patel and Dan Bogino are in charge of the FBI. So there's that. Yeah,
I know, but there's still 1,000 people working there. They all still have ways and means of doing things. So.
Somebody.
And to add to the Department of Justice, at the same time, this was all before the phone call with Putin, where Putin humiliated Trump, made him look like some kind of, I wouldn't even say dog because dogs are cute, but some kind of, I guess, I don't even know. He made him wait. He publicly made sure that people knew that he made him wait over an hour. But right before that phone call, this happened, and then they shut down in Department of Justice. There was the War Crimes Accountability Task Force that was also working with Europeans on collecting, and generally with Ukrainians, Europeans on collecting evidence of war crimes. It was set up in 2022. By March of 2022, he basically shut that down too. He's doing everything to make sure that Russia's war crimes and whatever evidence we have just never sees the light of day.
It's just horrific. I didn't even have a number one story to go for this. I'm just going to say that, maybe, unless you guys want to add any others, I just think that the overall theme, this is a 5-alarm fire. We're at the point now where American democracy and American values and American rule of law is being completely ignored everywhere. The Constitution is being dismantled in front of our eyes. There are judges out there who are doing their best at holding the line, but they're vulnerable too right now with all these attempts to impeach them and everything like that. They can only hold the line up to a certain point. This is a fast-moving takeover of America that is really unbelievable that it's happening at this pace. Maybe that indicates that they're nervous on the other side, that this is stoppable. That's why they're moving so quickly. But it is stunning that we're looking at these kinds of actions, including these actions against universities, university protests, We really have become, it's become a police state in a very quick amount of time.
Right.
Yeah.
And
No, yeah. You know what? And it's coming out in different ways, right? It's not just the obvious, like on the nose examples like we're talking about today. Yesterday, Trump put out, or maybe it was this morning actually, put out a Truth Social post that said basically he's going to start sending anybody who protests or damages a Tesla to El Salvador to that mega prison for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, and
think about that.
he didn't say immigrants, he didn't say illegal aliens, he said
Yeah.
anybody. Doesn't matter who you are. And to put the fear of God in people. And keep in mind, this is the same guy who pardoned 1,500 hardened fucking criminals that tried to violently take over the United States of America. And he's offering 20 years in prison for someone who spray paints a Tesla. That's where I really start to see it again. The obvious overtones and overtures of what he's doing to support Putin and to normalize things by saying stuff like, no, Russia's not attacking Ukraine during this fake ceasefire deal. They're fighting each other. Those are again on the nose. We know it. But when we start hearing, and again, like this isn't a land far away. This is happening in America. This is the overtures to Ukraine, what he's helping Putin do. That's one thing. But it's all because he wants to do this to the people in that beautiful country, to Americans, free Americans. And there are so many people that have been in contact with us after our sub five stack yesterday. I was inundated with notes from people like, thank you for telling us this stuff because my algorithm doesn't show me these posts. My algorithm doesn't show me the Tesla stuff. My algorithm doesn't show me all these terrible things Donald Trump is doing to that point. A Trump tweet of him doing something insane, like naming a jet after himself, traditionally would get thousands and thousands of likes in my world on Twitter, where you can find me at Steam Blundell. Those are now being suppressed to the point where nobody has that information. Yeah, all the mockery is starting to die down. The embarrassment we used to run him out of the room, that's disappearing because the algorithm is slowly suppressing anything that is not helping the Trump administration or helping the narrative of Elon Musk, MAGA, Putin, and that axis. Like it's truly happening in real time.
I have to keep pushing because let me tell you, I put out a tweet. I am like a dog on a bone with Ukrainian children. I will not stop until I get answers. I put out the tweet. That tweet went viral. I think I'm so angry that I hate calling it just
the algorithm's afraid of you. That's what it is. The algorithm's afraid of Olga.
for Ukrainian children.
It would have meant that a lot more
article.
people would have actually seen. I think about the algorithms is why you have to keep at it. Why everyone has to keep posting,
Yeah.
has to keep retweeting. Is it just means that your tweet about children was even more successful. It was even more viral. What they're doing is suppressing, right? So it's an algorithm that shrinks the audience to us. So it means the actual audience was way bigger, which is why it's so important that everyone doesn't give up on these Twitter accounts and on X, and keep at it, keep retweeting the things that matter to you, because it is an algorithm. It's suppressing things. It's not, they can't suppress it completely because it becomes very obvious in the numbers. Sorry, but go ahead.
No, and you too for the number one story.
Yeah.
Do not give in. Do not let them put you in fear. Call your Congress people. Do town halls. I'm like, as soon as I clear up with my personal stuff by next month, I am going to hold a town hall for my useless congresswoman who I called, her name is Maliotakis, to ask, or do you support the kidnapping of Ukrainian children? I have a huge Ukrainian constituency here. She had the huge Ukrainian constituency. She has not answered me back. I called every single office and I will assemble a bunch of people. I will knock on every single door and let every Ukrainian and Polish person and Eastern European person know that she had not made one comment about this evidence, about this contract being pulled and whatnot. And everyone, whatever your issue is, if they don't want to do the town hall, you organize it in their parking lot. You do. And for them, put a cardboard, call your local news, have your local papers cover it, and you organize the town hall. Because we need to push back, because if we don't act, and I'm very proud actually of Americans, because people started, normally February is like the most dead month after an election, and you saw this spreading through February. I think we just need to keep pushing back, keep pushing on our issues, whatever our focus is, and just keep going, because if we allow them to silence us, then that's the whole point. This is why they do the fear mongering and all the propaganda videos that they're putting out of all these arrests. We have rights and we will use them, and we need to just be smart, strategic, and push back.
Said Olga Laubin. You should get her primary, or at least maybe even run against her. I'd love to see you in Congress.
I'm not a public speaker, but trust me, I would freaking send her packing, because
I would love to see you in Congress. I think it'd be amazing.
how could she be silent? Her constituency is Ukrainians. How the hell are you going to be silent and not say one word after people are calling you to find out what happened with this database on Ukrainian
It's helping to lose elections is because they don't listen to their constituents and they don't listen to the concerns of their constituents. And they're children. They are children. It's just it's the most shocking story. I can't believe Zelensky is even negotiating under these circumstances with anybody, but I guess he has to under the circumstances. But Dean, is there anything else you want to say as we end the show here? Is there anything else you want to chime in?
No, just really enjoyed doing this on a Friday. Great to see Olga. She's got paint to clean up. You have a nap to have.
I already had the map.
But no, appreciate everybody spending some time with us today. I love communicating with people. I love telling people what, from a factual perspective, what the stakes are and what's going on, and to get a chance to do it with you too as we head into the weekend was a real privilege. So great to see you both.
And you're at it's Dean Blundell. I'll never get that right on Twitter, but you're also at Dean Blundell on Substack, and everyone should follow you. Olga, any other thoughts you want to share? And if everyone who doesn't know already, then
more than anyone was running. My thoughts, please. First of all, thank you as always for supporting Ukraine. Thank you for standing with us for the past 3 years now, and now we're on the 11th year. By the way, I don't know how many people, and if you covered it, that this bullshit sham plan that Trump has with Putin and the phone call, that was done specifically on the anniversary 11 years ago. Crimea was illegally annexed. This is how sick this sham plan is, that they planned a phone call to do the ceasefire for 1 hour, it lasted, on the anniversary when Russia illegally recognized Crimea. It started in February of 2014, went through March. By March 18th is when they signed their fake bullshit into whatever. But this shows you how twisted it is.
And people really have to watch
Crimea was turned into a concentration camp. All Ukrainians were disappeared, stolen into Russia. Ukrainian children are being kidnapped now. This has been happening since 2014.
People really need to worry about what other concessions Trump may give away here. I think that Putin is putting a lot of pressure on Trump to give away even more. And it's enough. There's no more concessions. We have to have pressure on Trump government not to do more.
No one needs to pay attention to U.S. Honestly, Europe needs to get their act together, make sure that Ukraine defeats Russia, not a ceasefire, not a plan. If Russia really wants peace, they know where the border is. Get the fuck out of Ukraine. All they have to do is pick up their troops and get out.
Yeah, and listen, the Ukraine is no shrinking violet. They were hammering the shit out of military targets yesterday. The support that they're getting from the international community is incredible. Macron basically came out yesterday, outside of trolling the United States, saying, "Hey, we've got jets." He basically came out and said, I see Russia talking to the United States, but I don't see Ukraine involved. So those aren't peace talks at all. So we'll just continue to fill it up.
Yeah, I think everyone's buying time right now.
They are buying time,
U.S., but honestly, frankly, Trump can go negotiate with Putin on another part of the world or whatever the hell they want to do to leave everyone alone.
I just have one last thing before everyone goes. I think that the travel advisories are important, but I think people in all these NATO countries need to start looking at their digital infrastructures and how interconnected they are with American infrastructure. I think that you've got a lot of vulnerability there amongst all these NATO countries these were our friends, these were our allies. You used to be able to trust them to wander through your cloud servers or beyond your digital borders. I think that's ending really quickly. And I think that there's a lot of vulnerability there in the West, or in the shrinking West, but still the West, where you've got a lot of potential vulnerability for hacking and other stuff that might be going on, as well as these actual physical attacks that are happening across Europe. People need to start taking this a lot more seriously. This has become quite a ramped up situation. On that not very fun note, good night, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Olga Laubin is the Trump tyranny tracker, the most useful, incredible Substack there is, the Trump Tyranny Tracker. I don't know how many hours it must take you to put that together, but thank you so much for doing it.
A day.
It's amazing how comprehensive it is and how brilliant it is. Thank you for your work. It really is amazing stuff. I really appreciate you. And Dean Blundell at Dean Blundell's the Substack, and I'm Zev Shalev at the Narrative Substack. That's narrative.org, NARATIV.org. Have a good weekend, everybody. See you next time.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.